In this video, I'm going to show you how to turn $1,000 into $45,000 through email. And over the last 90 days, we spent just under 10 million emails from acquisition.com, and we generate tens of millions of dollars across our portfolio using email itself. And in this video, I'm going to break down emails that I've sent, and I'll give you the 10 tactics that have worked very well for us so far. First things first, here's why I think you should do email. I was a moron and decided to not email for the vast majority of my life because I hate money, apparently. And so the average ROI for email, depending on the source you look at, is between 35 and 45 return. So that means that for every dollar you spend on software or putting time into your email, you can get like $45 back. Like imagine if there was a stock investment that you could 50x in a week. Well, that's kind of like what email is, and people still don't do it, myself included. And part of the reason that making money on email is more profitable is because you actually have already spent the time to acquire this contact. And so in a lot of ways, email is just follow-up. And so you spent the cost to acquire the lead, now you're just reminding them that you exist. And so basically the only real cost is just whatever software you use and whoever or whomever you may have to pay in order to write the emails. That's pretty much it. And so one email writer can send an email to 10 million people, and that is a tremendous amount of leverage that you get in your business that a lot of people ignore. On top of that, email is one of the most consumed media platforms, and it hasn't died down. So 61% of people check their email multiple times per day. 20% of people check it multiple times per hour. It has almost the same consumption rate as social media in terms of how engaged some of the users are of people reading their emails every single day. And what's cool about email is that it's actually uniform across age groups. And so you can see between 15 and 24, 25 and 44, 45 and 64, and 65 plus, pretty much everyone, 90% plus, or 84 at the very end bracket there, read email all the time. If you're gonna master something, it's one that transcends age groups. And I'll bet you, even though we don't have the metric, it transcends countries as well. I would bet you that UK people probably respond similar to US people, probably even respond similar to Chinese people in terms of their email consumption. And I know just because I've gone back and forth with Chinese providers and warehouses and things like that, they're pretty responsive on email too. And so a massive, very invisible platform. And so as I think about email, the objective of the email has one of two purposes. One is to increase the likelihood that this person purchases in the future or that they purchase. That's fundamentally it. And so it basically has the exact same objectives as content. And so it's just a different form of content consumption, except where you can guarantee that you get delivery. Whereas when you make a post, the algorithm decides who gets to see it. When you send an email, basically your past performance determines whether or not they get to see it. And there's a couple of little tricks to make sure you get in the right email inbox and not get in the promo tabs. We'll go over some of that stuff. But big picture, you actually have the list and you send it directly to them. And if you're embarrassed, by the way, that you haven't sent email, then worry not, because I am too. And I will show you the first email I sent to my list just not that many months ago. That's obviously within acquisition.com. The portfolio companies send emails all the time, but I hadn't sent anything to Mosey Nation. And so this was it. So I started with subject, is this on? And I just said that because I thought it was funny. I started with a quote that I like a lot, which is, it only takes 20 hours of focused effort to get proficient in any skill. The problem is most people waste years before they start the first hour. So I've been making content for 4 or 5 years now, and I had yet to send an email. And so that quote of mine felt rather appropriate for myself. The thing is that I think you can model something like this, like if it has been a minute for you, like you're like, I should have been emailing. It's okay, you can start whenever you want, and the day you start is the day you start getting 45 plus returns on the time and money you put into it. So I said, after 13 years of business, I'm finally going to write you. I know, wild. The fact that it's taking me this long is doubly stupid considering people think that I'm an author. And part of the reason that I actually didn't send emails before is that I'm so selective with your attention. I don't want to waste it ever. And so I would rather not send you something at all rather than send you something bad. That's number one. Number two is that I'm very picky with written word. And so if you ever see written word across any of my social channels, believe it or not, I wrote it. It either came out of my mouth or I physically typed it. It's directly from me, because for some reason I feel like written word carries more than anything else does. And it's probably why even in like legal discourse, if you have written proof and contracts are legally binding, it's because it's written. There's something powerful about words. I basically break this whole down and say, hey, I'm starting Mosey Money Minute, which is basically the name of my newsletter. So my whole goal was, how do I provide value in under 60 seconds so that someone can read it and immediately get something that they can use in their business. And so my goal is that I hope I pay for myself with every email that I send, and I also include one thought that's improved my life. And so for here, if I were to like apply this to this, it'd be like, okay, this is kind of the thought that improved my life. And this one, I don't have a tactic that improves their business, but maybe just reminding them to send emails would be the first thing. But everyone after that are officially Mostly Money Minutes do. So let's dive into those. Now let's talk about different tactics. So first things first, everybody wants to talk about how much you can make from email, but no one talks about unsubscribing, right? No one wants, it's like the dirty other, oh yeah, people unsubscribe. Every time you send a communication out, there's gonna be people who unsubscribe. And I don't see unsubscribing nearly as negatively as other people do. And I'll explain why. When I look at our people who show up to workshops, a lot of times they are people who unsubscribed. So it's not an insult. It's like they know who I am and they're in. I don't see it as a negative per se. Also, every single day, thousands of people unsubscribe from my Instagram, thousands of people unsubscribe from YouTube, but I just have more people who subscribe. And so I just see the process of advertising is letting people know about your stuff. And so if someone unsubscribes, they absolutely know about you and your stuff. And it doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to buy. It just might not mean that that form of communication or that particular inbox they opted in with is the one that they want to use. Fine, no big deal. So instead of trying to hide it, it's like probably if I see a brand try and make unsubscribing hard, I hate them. And so I have always tried to do the opposite of that. I think number one is that you want to make unsubscribing easy. Don't keep people captive. And let me explain by that. I don't want to keep sending emails to an uninterested segment of my list because it'll actually make my domain deliverability go down long term. By sending it for vanity metrics of, look, I sent more emails, I actually decrease the likelihood that the people who do want to read my emails actually get them. And so that's why you want to make unsubscribing easy, because if you make it hard, they might not unsubscribe, but then they go dormant, which is actually worse for you. So make it easy. I want to be real with you for a second. If you haven't sent email or you really don't send often, like once every 6 months or something, the first time you send an email, you're going to have a higher unsubscribe rate than normal. And that's okay. I call it shaking the trade. It's basically like pulling forward churn. It's the same thing if you correspond with customers who are on a recurring revenue business and you haven't been emailing them or haven't been reaching out to them, you will always get more churn. You'll get next month churn and this month's churn all at once. And so the highest churn I ever had was on the first email I ever sent. And so it was like just over 1%, which is crazy, right? But now it's like 0.42 unsubscribe rate per email, which is fine. As long as we grow higher than that between emails, that's a good ROI. And it's like, you have to take the logical extreme here. If you are unafraid to email because you don't want to get unsubscribes, why do you have emails to begin with? It's kind of like saying, well, I don't want to post content because then people would stop following me. It's like, well, the only point of them following you is to advertise your stuff. And so if the logical extreme of this is just never do anything, then that's probably not the right conclusion. Number two, and this one is a little bit more advanced, but very worth it. So HubSpot ran a really cool research study where they saw that they had an increase. So already insane ROI for email. They had a 791% increase in ROI from email from one thing, which is people who segmented their lists got way higher returns on email, which should be somewhat unsurprising, right? Like if you send the right emails to the right people, then they will be more likely to buy your stuff. So if I send a beginner email to a list of advanced people, they'll be like, this is not for me. And to the same degree, and also it doesn't have anything to do with the email, it just might not be right for them. And to the same degree, if I send an advanced thing to people who don't have a business or want to start a business, then they're gonna be like, this doesn't apply. And so it's way less about how good the email is and so much more about who's getting it. And so segmenting the list is basically like if you have any qualifiers on your opt-in, so like revenue, or if they have a business or don't have a business, which are some of the ones that we have in our opt-in process, this allows us to send content that's more applicable to those people. And so when we have our list, we say, oh, let's just send this to the 500K plus. Let's just send this to the 5 million plus. Let's just send this to the 0 to 100K. And so a lot of people want to lie because they think they're going to get like a better experience if they go up, but like you're just going to get stuff that doesn't apply to you. So just be honest when you're putting your info in. So let me pull up a sample email so we can break down the structure so you can think about it. Now, to be clear, you don't have to do this. I'm just going to explain what I was doing, and if it's useful for you, great. Number one, on the subject heading, I thought a lot about this because on some hand, there's a lot of internet marketers and digital guys who, you know, they split test the hell out of their subjects. And I thought about this more as like a podcast where it's like podcast episode X and then it just keeps going. Because my thought, I'll explain, was if I can basically develop the brand of Mosey Money Minute to be very strong, then eventually it will get to the point where independent of what I have after Mosey Money Minute, when people know that they always get value in the past when they read it, they'll just click. Going back and forth on this, I was like, I want to build the brand of my email to be strong. And so on one hand, you could say, well, if they know it's from you, then that could be the brand. But we send other emails as well that are not Mosey Money Minute. So I wanted Mosey Money Minute to have its own kind of like little space in someone's mind. That was a choice I made. You could obviously just have your subject be proof over promise. That's your call, but that's why I decided to stick with it, and that's what I've done. So right off the bat, I think about everything in terms of feedback cycles and reward. And so I want to reward every action that someone takes. And so if someone first reads the email, then if they've been rewarded in the past for Mozzie Money Minute, they'll click and they'll open it. Now I need to reward them for that. So a lot of people think about behavior as what happened before that triggered someone to do something. But that's actually not how behavior works, and that's been proven. The way behavior works is that you did that thing because you did it another time in the past and rewarded for it. So if you want to see why someone does something, look at what happens after they do it. Because when you do a behavior, you do it to get something to change or to improve your life in some way, right? Words I like, I start the email here because I want someone, even in less than the time it takes to read the email, to immediately be rewarded for clicking and opening. For me, a quote or tweet is something that's in one glance, they can be rewarded for taking the first action. That's the first thing I'm doing. Now, the next thing is that I have kind of the meat of my email. Now, for me, my meat of the email, I keep under, I think, 200 words because it's roughly a minute. And so that's been kind of like the Mozzie Money minute kind of promise. That being said, we also send other emails that are really long. So Layla sends emails to the kind of like the most qualified businesses on the list that we have that, generate the most revenue, and hers tend to be a little bit longer. And that's because she tends to teach more via story. I have a little bit more like tactical style. Her emails do great too. So I want to make sure that this doesn't seem like rule of law. I want to explain why I wrote my emails this way. So we have our tactic, and I very clearly, there's a lot of times where I'm like, man, I could put this other thing in. One concept, just keep it on one thing. Because as soon as you start, you're not writing a book here. It's just what is one very clear thing, and I just keep cutting it down until it's like, this is what's happening. And so you want to basically introduce a problem or condition that makes the solution viable. So no matter how good your product is, a stranger won't believe you because you're biased. Okay, so that's a problem. If strangers don't believe you, okay, so the easiest way to overcome this is overwhelming social proof. Okay, there's a solution. But now, how do I do that? And so then I put a little extra line. And so few businesses do it. Here's an easy tactic to display tons of proof you already have but aren't showing. This is one where they already have all this stuff. They're 6 inches away from gold, and we just need to cross the barrier. And so I just said, cool, if you're brick and mortar, print out every 5-star review, screenshot it across all review sites online, then frame it with $1 frames you can get from the dollar store, cover your lobby floor to ceiling with them, and see the PS statement for a real-world example. So that also, and that's a little bit of foreshadowing, I'll show you, for something else that we do in the email. Now, if you're online, then you read the one for online. After that, it's like, cool, I delivered my 1 minute of value that any business owner can immediately use in their business, because almost every business has a few 5-star reviews on some platform that they can immediately repurpose to get strangers to believe them more, and then ultimately sell more stuff. I have my little sign off, and underneath I have a CTA. So if you're scaling your business, go here. If you want to start a business, go here. So this goes to Skool. This goes to acquisition.com for workshops, because that's for businesses that we're not necessarily going to do a deal with, or maybe we'll do one in the future. It's just an easy way for us to meet them. So it's just like, cool, come fly out, we'd love to meet you. Okay, so PS, I always have a PS statement in every email because beyond the headline, it's the most read part of the email. So not having a PS statement is PS stupid. So have one. The thing is that I think about this as, again, what have they just done? So they have now read my email. So I want to reward them for reading my email, and I want to encourage people to click. Because one of the things that I think a lot of people try not to do is try to get people not to click or send too many links. So sending too many links is a bad thing, so that's true. In terms of getting someone to click, you want to regularly get people to click because you want your audience to be rewarded for clicking in general. And so if you have a blog that you send out, don't put the blog in the email. Put a really interesting nugget from the blog in the email and then click there so that they can read it. And so you're training the audience and rewarding them. Ideally, if the blog is good, they will do it again. Just like Mozzie Money Minute, if your blog is good, it'll increase the likelihood they do it again. If your blog is bad or emails are bad, it'll decrease it. And so this is why I see this very much as content, because it has to be good. And think about the alternative scenario. If you have 4 good emails and then 1 terrible one, it can just like that one was just so useless that they're like, I'm not going to do this again. I would rather just extend a period of time where I haven't talked to somebody and just make sure that what I send them is good. And long term, if people don't open your emails, then you'll eventually end up in the promo tab, which is kind of like email death. Like no one ever really checks that, even if you have good stuff. And so you want to obviously get people to read your emails quickly. So that's one email. Now let's talk about a different tactic. So mobile optimized design. So right now, 60% of global internet traffic is mobile devices. And what's crazy is that a lot of people's emails are not optimized for mobile viewership. And that's where a lot of people are actually gonna be reading your thing. And so you wanna make sure that you look at your emails on a desktop format and on a mobile format so that they display the right way for the viewing platform they're being viewed through. When you do that, all you do is, first objective of email, increase the likelihood they convert. And this is especially true if you had images to your emails. This is more like e-commerce does a lot of this. That's where like images can get totally messed up, not look good. It just looks unprofessional and totally plummets the click-through rates for your emails. Number 4, consistent layout / format. I tend to love templates. I love to just figure out what works and then do it over and over and over again. So in the beginning, you might experiment a little bit, but if you see that a certain format gets more responses or more click-throughs, then it's like, cool, let's just do that over and over again. And so you'll notice that the Mosey Monday Minutes more or less have the same format. They have the thing, they have the content, they have the CTA, and then they have some sort of PS statements, or the CTA is the PS statement. But that's included in every single one of them. I want people to know what they're going to get. Think about McDonald's. It's like, I don't want any surprises. I'm expecting a Big Mac, I want fries, I want my Coke. And so today's Big Mac, fries, and Coke is different than yesterday's, but I don't want it to be different. It's not the same burger, but I want it to still be just as good.